To introduce my friend Laura Marie. She and her husband are staying with us. She's played for our house concert series in both Huntsville and Galveston, and also spoke to the Huntsville church when we were there. She's from San Antonio, and she is a songwriter known for her soothing vocals, introspective lyrics, and memorable melodies. With a unique blend of folk and indie pop, she explores themes of love, loss, and resilience, touching on personal experiences and larger societal issues. Her music is praised for its honesty and emotional depth and has earned her an Independent Music Award, and she has been licensed in television shows and independent films in the United States and Europe. In addition to her work as a musician and an author, she is a passionate advocate for mental health awareness and human rights issues. She's spoken publicly about her struggles with anxiety and depression and works with various nonprofit organizations to raise awareness and funds for causes close to her heart. Laura Marie is deeply committed to creating authentic and meaningful works that serve as a source of hope. And I really hope you enjoy her half as much as I do. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. All right, I don't know if it's going to be a wear my glasses day or a not wear my glasses day, so I have them here just in case. Happy Mother's Day. Excuse me. All right. My name is Laura Marie, and I'm a singer-songwriter from San Antonio, Texas. That's where I was born and raised. And I'm also a childhood trauma survivor. I wrote a book about what it was like to grow up as a survivor of trauma and how that impacted my relationships and my career in the music industry. So many people who experience trauma, they can end up in unhealthy relationships. It's sort of a pattern that gets set, especially when it's early in life. And in my journey to uncover why my relationships were so unhealthy, I started to understand that it was my obsessive need for certainty and a compulsive need to control my surroundings. And that perpetuated a very insecure attachment to anybody that I was with. So that was, but wasn't just in my romantic life, it was in my friendships, in my business, and in how I related to people and the world around me. We all grow up immersed in a culture and surrounded by many different belief systems that offer answers to our questions. And my question was always why? Why did this happen to me? Why can't I be happy? Why do I always make the same mistakes over and over again? And sometimes our belief system doesn't have the answers that we're looking for. So then you go seeking. But what if the idea of seeking outside your belief system is considered wrong? What if to question what you believe or why you believe it is considered wrong? What if you believe that it's literally the road to hell? Then you're stuck. And that's kind of where I was for a long time. When children are abused, they look to their caregivers for comfort and safety, even if their caregivers are the abusers. That's all they know about comfort and safety. My parents were not my abusers. They didn't know about the abuse until I was an adult and was able to articulate what had happened to me as a child. But there's this thing that happens in a child's mind when they suffer abuse and when their parents can't, or in some cases won't, protect them. The child still tries to make sense of it. And when you're a child, the idea that your caregivers are wrong doesn't really register. They're your source of comfort and safety, the only one you know. And instead, the idea that something is wrong with you is the one that becomes most prevalent. The abuse must be your fault. And even if you eventually get away from the abuse, you still believe you're the problem. And if you believe you're a problem, then you find lots of ways to become a problem. So it became a journey on how to heal, how to grow. For a long time, I thought that someone outside of myself could fix me. But that puts a lot of pressure on someone else to do the fixing and very little on me. As an adult, I finally realized that I had to do the work myself, and that meant being really honest with myself about my shortcomings and figuring out what drove me towards unhealthy behaviors. And it took a long time to understand the impacts of what happened to me as a child and why I never felt safe, why I gravitated towards people who were abusive in some way. I had a number of toxic beliefs about myself and other people that I had to tackle. And many of those beliefs were given to me by well-meaning people, teachers, parents, religious leaders. Many of them were also misconceptions, and some of them were just assumptions I made because I didn't have a lot of information about how the world worked. So this is why I believe it's so important to question everything, because my happiness depended on my questioning. It's how I came to know myself and what I truly believe. It's how I learned to live according to my beliefs. It's what helped me change my toxic behaviors, questioning. I learned that my emotional and spiritual health depended on questioning. And though I think we each have to find our own internal compass, we can't do that in a bubble. We have to go out into the world, seek other ways of thinking to be able to learn and change if we're stuck in one way of thinking that hasn't gotten us there. So we can have a more complete picture of who we are and who we want to be. So I have a book and EP project called Too Sweet Songs for Setting Boundaries, because that was one of the big issues I had, is that I had difficulty setting boundaries in my life with other people. And I wrote this song, Why, out of frustration, because I'd run into a number of people who wanted me to think a certain way, and it wasn't getting me where I needed to be. These days, I'm in a better place. Every step intended, every movement mine. And I don't see you, because my eyes are focused forward. I'm not looking for another place to hide. So this is for the people passing by who never bother asking why. They never get it why. I never let them in to tear me into pieces, make mistakes of all my reasons why. They never see it why. They don't believe in why. The takeaway is that there's no mistake. We're all just walking through the mazes in our minds. And here's the breakthrough. If you go looking for the truth, you know you'll have to be uncomfortable with mine. So this is for the people passing by who never bother asking why. They never get it why. I never let them in to tear me into pieces, make mistakes of all my reasons why. They never see it why. They don't believe in why. They don't believe in why. I'd be alone, go away, let them have their judgment day. I'd rather have my hell to pay than follow blind. And who knows where I'll go, let them fight over my soul. I'd rather never really know than close my mind. If God intended heaven to be far beyond my question, well then why'd he leave it here for me to find? So this is for the people passing by who never bother asking why. They never get it why. I never let them in to tear me into pieces, make mistakes of all my reasons why. They never see it why. They don't believe in why. They don't believe in why. They don't believe in why. Why? They don't believe in why. Why? Thank you. So it takes a lot to question why, personally, but even more when you're in a community. And it's a lot to pull at the strings that hold that community together or to hold the system together. But that's what's essential for us to grow. Any dissatisfaction we feel in a situation is our hearts calling us to grow, to get past our pain or our limitations or our smallness. And we question what we know, seeking truth, when our beliefs don't stand up to questioning. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I accepted the priest homily as God's lesson for us. And I didn't think that it was an interpretation. I didn't think it was an opinion. It was just truth. That's how I took it. Until the teenage years hit, of course. And I grew up with two very different views of the church. My mother's, she worked for the church. She studied scriptures, and she was a social worker who worked for the church. And she taught me not to judge others, not by their color or their creed or their position in society. So I saw the church through her eyes as a community, as a way to serve other people. There was beauty and purpose in that. And then I grew up with my father's vision of the church was he didn't want anything to do with it. He went to Catholic school growing up, and his hands were beaten quite often when the nuns would discover him speaking Spanish, which was his native language. So through his eyes, I saw the church as flawed and a little bit intimidating. So who was I to question when I didn't believe something or I didn't know if I believed something? But I was also a child who didn't like being told what to do or doing what I was told when I didn't understand why I was doing it. And in our church, we recited the Nicene Creed. And I had this one line, I remember as a teenager, this one line that really stuck in my craw. It was, I believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church. And that sounded just exclusive to me in a way that hit me as uncomfortable. There were a lot of people I loved and cared about who were not in the church, who didn't believe in or have any specific belief, or who just weren't Catholic. And I also had friends that the church officially or unofficially condemned. One of my most difficult things for me to reconcile with the church was my love for my friends in the LGBTQ community. So I had a lot of them growing up. And I didn't like the idea of one holy Catholic and apostolic church if it meant I was isolated from people I loved. So I protested the only way I knew how at the time. When it came to saying those lines, I just closed my mouth and I just skipped that part. But I was fascinated with other people's faiths and religions, and I started asking people questions about theirs. I loved learning about other people's faiths, but I also loved learning that mine, the one I'd been taught to believe, was possibly wrong or not the full picture. That gave me so much joy. Learning that other people didn't believe in this eternal damnation thing was so freeing. There was a lightness in my heart, and I came to understand that as truth. What I felt in my heart was true. So I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I also suffered that abuse later as a young adult. I have complex PTSD and OCD, and that manifests in very morbid fears and a compulsive need to control aspects of my environment. So I lived with a lot of fear and a lot of control issues, and I was afraid of the light. I distrusted happiness and I distrusted joy. But relief from fear, that I understood. And when I began to learn other people's experiences and it could relieve that fear, that fear of eternal condemnation. That's what I felt was truth. When I talked to my mother about coming here and speaking about pluralism, it was an interesting conversation. She has her master's in pastoral theology. She studied the scriptures as truth. And I asked her what the church says about that, and she says, well, not a lot, but I got the idea that it's frowned upon. And these weren't her words, but she said, this is the idea that I get about what the church believes, that if there are many truths, then there's no truth. And I get that stance, I really do, because I recognize the fear in that. If people question a belief system and accept other beliefs, then we're all pulling at strings that hold the belief system together. Then who takes control? Who has control? What takes its place? Is there chaos? Is there evil? I get that fear. I've lived that fear. And I know that questioning can lead to chaos. It did for me. The world as I knew it fell apart. The relationships I had that were horrible fell apart. But I learned that making decisions in fear was not as good as making them in love, because there's no freedom in fear. There's no lightness of being. That relief isn't there. There's just the need to control and not trust, and that's not faith. But to love, to really love, is to allow and to accept and to trust and to follow where truth leads. So back in 2012, I wrote this song called Honest. And it's when I finally realized that it was more important to live my truth than to uphold somebody else's lie. I had built a world around lies, and I was afraid of that falling apart. And then I finally realized I couldn't hold it all together anymore. So, here it is. Huh? It's on. Just a little bit out.
Spoken
So it took me a long time. I went searching for a lot of different beliefs that I could would speak to my heart and not make me feel isolated. So many of us feel isolated, alone, and ashamed. And I wanted to connect to people, but I also carried a lot of shame. One of the best things about a community like this, or any religious community, any congregation, is that it's a source of comfort and guidance and community. And when we're lost, that's what we need. There's a lot that we're lost about, not just what I went through, but ideas of our own mortality, violence, the cruelty we see in the world. What I wanted more than anything was a feeling of certainty. For somebody to tell me that I'm safe. For somebody to tell me exactly how to ensure my safety, tell me how to be and how not to be, tell me what I was doing wrong and how to correct it, tell me how to stop the suffering, give me the answers. Give me all the answers. But that was a problem. Because some would give me an answer and that wasn't the answer. Oftentimes the advice was just to accept their ideas without question, especially when you lean on people, in the Catholic Church. And if you tell me not to question, well, you've just created 1,000 more questions. And if you tell me not to doubt, I don't think I can do that. I was even told at one point to stop questioning and just pray for the gift of faith. But I never came to believe something faithfully because I ignored or suppressed my doubts about it. My faith has always been strengthened by exploring my doubts, even when I was afraid of exploring them. That's how I learned to recognize what really rang true in my heart and how to find that inner compass and whether I was being led by fear or love. That's why I say the most good we can do for others is honoring their paths to truth on their own terms. You can't give someone faith. You can't force faith, and compliance is not faith. The whole idea that we believe or have to believe the same thing, that's fear. It may feel like love to some people because you feel like you're protecting them, but just to believe that somebody else needs to be saved by your belief is a response to fear. It's fear of the unknown, fear of punishment, fear of what we don't understand, fear because we doubt. We fear because we doubt that we could never be perfectly loved and held and cherished as we are, just as we are. So this song, If You Only Knew, is a song I wrote after I had a conflict of beliefs with another person. I was at the post office and ran across a man who held up a very offensive sign to me. And I'm not proud of what I did, but I got so angry I knocked it over. And words were exchanged. I was younger. I'm a little bit more mature now. But when I went home and had a good cry and wrote an angry song, then I sat there and thought, what would it take to be at peace with that man? What would it take to do something in love in that situation instead of in anger? And this is a song I came up with. So I don't want you to think that that moment of clarity meant that I became a saint or anything. This is what I believe about truth, that it's larger than any one person or any one belief system, that any one of us only has or only sees the part that we can see from our unique perspective. And in order for us to see more of the truth, we have to look through each other's eyes. And the only way we can do that is to question and to ask and to listen. I wrote in my book, if you don't allow room for someone else's why, their search for truth, and their unique perspective, you're cutting yourself off from the bigger picture to keep everyone under control with a very limited one. I want to end with this little song that I wrote. It's called Be Love. And it's based on my favorite prayer that I had as a child. Can you hear the guitar okay? It's based on the prayer of St. Francis. It's a prayer that always kind of took me out of my own fear and isolation and reminded me of that I could have a greater purpose in the world. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.